Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. The title of my talk is Evaluation. Evaluation is a systematic process of collecting and interpreting data. We often feel overwhelmed at all the data that we have. In this age of data analytics and big data, we have massive amounts of data that we continuously generate and store on a continuous basis. And schools are not immune to this. We have state tests, standardized assessments. We have screening assessments, performance assessments, rubrics, classroom-based assessments, teacher evaluations, disciplinary data. And I'm sure there's something I missed that you could fill in the blank. Teachers in schools generate so much data, and it's overwhelming. So what do we do about this? Is it meaningful? Do we really use this data in ways that matters to us for issues that we care about? Evaluation. Evaluation is a systematic process of collecting and interpreting data to judge the merit and worth of curriculum, organizations, programs, initiatives, personnel. And often when we hear the word judge, feelings of anxiety and fear overcome us. It has a negative connotation. For some of you, seeing this image might bring up some of that fear and anxiety. For those of you not aware, this is a quality rating report of a Chicago public high school. These are publicly posted on CPS's website for every school in the district. This is an evaluation report that, based on systematic data, gives a judgment on the quality of a school. So we have various data sources that serve as indicators, and those are used together to make an overall quality rating on this school. It's no wonder that teachers and educators feel pressure and anxiety about evaluation. So in my scholarship, I work with organizations and practitioners to rethink how we think about evaluation. So it's not this overwhelming, time-consuming, anxiety-producing task, but it's a meaningful task. It's values engaged, and it's equity focused. And in that process, there are many questions that we ask ourselves, and I want to share with you tonight 2 of those questions. The first is, what constitutes data? When I say the word data, typically people think about what you have already seen on the screen here as data. But I want us to think a bit more broadly about data, and I'll tell you a story to illustrate that. I worked on an evaluation of a professional development program of a literacy initiative with some Chicago public schools. And the faculty member who had been doing this work for numerous years and had developed the program and was working to implement it said to me at the beginning of our time working together, "You know, Leanne, this time I want to do it differently. I really want to be able to capture and represent all the good work that everyone is going to do, and I want to be able to show people that. So I'm going to take photographs." And she did, and she shared them with me. And then when I went into schools and graduate students with me went into schools, I took photographs, and we began to share them back to the teachers and principals and those working in the schools. And soon we had principals and teachers and coaches in schools taking photographs and sending them to us about the work that they were doing and what they were accomplishing. And they began to share them with each other. I want to show you a couple of these photographs that happened at the very beginning of the project. By the end, we had over thousands of photographs, and I didn't even know what to do with them all. But these are images of school spaces at the beginning of the project. The images on the left are before images, the image on the right are after. And they demonstrate the work that happened to transform the physical spaces in the school to make these environments ready to work with the kids and do the literacy instruction that they were intending to do in those spaces and places. So for you, what constitutes data? Do you think about what you observe on an everyday basis and perhaps could capture in a photograph as data? Do you think about conversations that you have with people and the stories that we tell as data? A second question is, what do we value and represent with data? On another evaluation project I worked on, it was with a consortium of middle schools and high schools, and they collaborated with a variety of nonprofit organizations, and they worked together and wrote a grant which got accepted to the U.S. Department of Education to their Teaching American History program. This federal initiative was designed to give teachers content-rich knowledge to teach history and therefore pass on to students. When I worked with this local group, one of the things that came out in terms of a local need is that students who were in special education classrooms and students who were English learners often were working with teachers that didn't have as rich of history background and content in terms of their major, and so therefore they didn't have the same access that other students did to that rich content. And so one of the goals that they wrote in there was that these teachers would be able to be actively involved and receive that experience through this professional development. After the first year of the project, we met as a management team, which we had done many times, and I shared with them as the evaluator what we had learned and what had been accomplished. One of the things that we needed to share was what they would need to report to the U.S. Department of Education in terms of indicators that mattered to the federal government about how this money was being used. And when we looked at that indicator, they looked fabulous. So this was the indicator. Each year of the grant, 75% of participating teachers will complete 75% or more of their professional development hours. In other words, the teachers were actively engaged in the professional development. Other federal indicators were also met. But I noticed a concerning pattern. When I looked at the list of 60 teachers that had participated in the first year, they taught AP history, world history, accelerated U.S. history. And when I looked more closely, only 5 out of the 60 teachers said that they primarily worked with special education students and students for whom English were English learners. And so I brought this to the management team. If we use this criteria to judge the program, it would have been deemed successful. If we use that second criteria, we're not doing so well. And we had a conversation about what this means and what we do. And so in year 2, they revamped how they recruited teachers to participate in professional development. They revamped the professional development opportunities they were going to provide so that they were more appealing to special education and teachers working with English learners. And they made sure they prioritized their involvement in the professional development. In year 2, 5 teachers went to 15 teachers. A small win, but a win in the right direction. What do you value in your professional practice? How do those values dictate how you make sense of data and evidence? Is it time to re-examine them? So evaluation doesn't need to be this overwhelming, anxiety-producing task. Evaluation can be an opportunity for us to identify inequities an opportunity to explore and consider together what are some ways that we might address those inequities. And it can be an opportunity to monitor and hold ourselves accountable to what we're working together to do to build an equitable society. And this is what we value at Loyola, teaching technical skills of how we utilize qualitative and quantitative evidence, teaching skills around how we have explicit conversations about what we value with others, understanding our own values, what we bring to a conversation, and being open to change. Thank you very much.